There are so many different ways to bring the cheer and brightness of spring into your home. However, because of COVID-19 and the dramatic way that it's affected the economy, I think many of us are looking for practical ways to save money. So going out and buying spring decorations might not really be in your finances this year. So although the first two of these projects do involve around $5 to $10 each, the rest are 100% free. All you're going to need is some good nature around you and a few random things from your kitchen or closet. My first spring decorating idea is just to buy a couple of herbs at your grocery store. These are super cheap and they're also very practical because you can actually cut the herbs and use them in your meals. And so not only do you have that spark of spring green life in your home, but you also have a practical use for them too. I just place these in my kitchen window and I look at them constantly and just love the way they look and love the fact that they taste good too. My next idea is a super simple, easy one, and that is to start a couple of flower bulbs. You can find these bulbs at a variety of different stores. The only thing I recommend is that you look for a flower that doesn't grow extremely tall unless you're planning to transplant it later on. Also make sure that you have a pinch neck vase. Put the bulb into the vase and fill it up with water until just the bottom of the bulb is touching a tiny bit of the water. You will notice that as the roots start to grow, the water will slowly decrease and you'll have to add more. But be sure that your bulb is never setting in the water or else it will start to rot. You can either just leave this vase in your window as the flowers begin to bloom, or you can transplant it into a pot and put it outside into your flower bed, whichever you'd prefer, but that way you just can bring spring inside that much earlier. Okay, so the rest of these should cost absolutely no money. All you need is to go outside into nature. Where I live here in the Northwest, there are just these gorgeous varieties of different bushes and plants and trees and branches. And so I just went out basically into my backyard and cut a whole bunch of these different branches, the varieties of them. And I'm going to be using them in wreaths and just bringing this greenery from outside, inside. And all you need is a backyard. All you need are some bushes and trees, and you can bring spring right directly into your own home. The thing I always love about bringing greenery and nature into your home is you're marrying the outside world with your inside world, and there's something just so beautiful about that. When it comes to vases or things to put your boughs or branches into, there are such a variety, and so you don't have to go out and buy some expensive vase. This is just a really small one. It has a small neck, which works good if you just have like one or two branches, because it doesn't have to be so packed full of branches in order to stay standing up. Here's just a little, I don't even know what this is. I bought it at the thrift store years ago, but you could put little flowers in there. Here's a mason jar. They work great as a way to use a vase. However, I would recommend using a smallmouth mason jar unless you have tons of branches you just want to pack in there. And then here's just this little crystal glass. I mean, there's so many different options you can use. Even a bowl, which I'm going to be making a moss bowl later. But there's just a variety of options, so don't feel like you have to have tons of vases on hand in order to have flowers or branches in your home. Excuse the fact that my water pitcher has a crack in it. This is like my favorite water pitcher ever, but it has a beautiful color and I like it anyway. I absolutely love finding the perfect spot in my home to print these arrangements. Sometimes it does take a couple different tries and I put them a couple different places, but I always find somewhere in the end that I really like where it looks. It fits into my decorations really well, and it just is kind of a focal point, bringing greenery into your home and adding that splash of color on those cloudy spring days. This next idea is also 100% free. All you're going to need is access to some dried twigs or branches, a hot glue gun, and then the glue sticks that go inside the glue gun. So to get started, I recommend that you find something that's about the size of the wreath you want to make. So for me, it was actually my colander. And so I sketched out the circle of the colander onto just a paper bag and ended up cutting that out. And then I brought in the twigs, and then it's super easy to use this circle as kind of a guideline to make sure that your wreath stays semicircular in the process of making it, which I learned is actually a little bit more difficult than I was expecting. Next, I recommend cutting or breaking your twigs or branches into anywhere from 6 to 12-inch pieces, and then you're going to start designing the shape that you want using your circular sketch or your circular cutout as kind of the guide. During this process, I did find that by occasionally lifting up the wreath and getting like a front-on view of it, it really helped me see the areas that were maybe a little bit bare to the eye and needed a couple more pieces and kind of get the whole thing to look a little bit more consistent and professional. So I did continue as I glued on each twig, kind of lifting it up and looking at it from different perspectives to make sure it was looking consistent and even throughout the entire wreath. Lastly, I did kind of want to add a little bit more greenery to this wreath and really spice it up and give it a little bit more of a springy feel. So I did cut a couple of fresh little twigs off of these boughs that I brought in and put them on the wreath, and it really gave it that more finished and more springy look. The nice thing about this too is that I can just pull them right out of the wreath because I didn't glue these ones on, and put new ones on or put flowers in it or tie a ribbon on it, and it's super versatile, but I can always go back to kind of the bare frame of just the branches. So this wreath is extremely versatile. So it turned out that I didn't have a wreath hanger, and so I decided to make one of those DIY ones that you see everywhere, just using a metal clothes hanger. But I wanted to dress it up a little bit, so I had this twine on hand, and you could use yarn, you could use rope, you could use nothing at all, but I just wanted to make it look a little bit more classy than just this white coat hanger. So you make it in the shape of an S. I'm sure you've probably created one before. And then I want to show you what I do with this rope because it really dressed it up and I think made it look so much more classy and so much less of a DIY. So starting out right below where the hanger would hook over top of your door, you're just going to wrap this twine, working your way down the entire hanger. And I used a hot glue gun every couple of inches to kind of secure the rope, but if you don't have one, I assume you could probably wrap it tight enough it would probably hold itself. Also, a quick tip, if you are using this 3-stranded rope, then a really easy way to unwrap it and just use like one of the strands is, rather than to untwist the entire thing, choose one piece of the 3 strands of rope and just pull it, and you can actually pull it away from all the rest of the rope. And it's so much quicker than trying to unravel the entire thing and untwist it all. And then obviously, if you were using this rope idea, then when you just get to the tip of your hanger, cut it and glue the tip into the rope and it is done. Alright, so the last totally free DIY is just making a moss bowl. And I've never actually made one of these before, but I've seen different videos, and I'm going to tell you this is probably one of the easiest ones there is. It was so simple and so fast to make. If you are looking for moss, a great place to look is in a really damp, moist place. They like to grow a lot on rocks by rivers or by slow running water, and they also really grow well on like rotten wood. And so oftentimes you'll find like a stump that'll have tons of moss on it. So go out, do a little bit of moss hunting, find a couple of rocks that you like, collect some pine needles or whatever kind of debris this moss is growing on, bring all those things back, and then it's super easy to create. Okay, so I'm assuming making a moss bowl does not require too much rocket science. I just put the rocks in the bottom of the bowl. When I collected this moss, I did try and keep a lot of the pine needles that were growing on the bottom of it in it. I did pull out a couple that were obvious and just too long and kind of stood out too much, but I left the majority of them in. And then I just kind of arranged the moss on the rocks, and I put a couple of little rocks on top just to give it a little bit of extra color and flair. And then I watered this, and it is ready to use as a decoration. I would recommend watering your moss pretty frequently because it is used to growing in a really damp environment like a rainforest or like the side still water. And so I do recommend that you water it often. Alright, you guys, there is this week's video. I sure hope that this was helpful and just gave you some creative ideas for how you can totally bring spring into your home without having to spend tons of money on stuff that you're just going to have to pack or throw away later. Also, if you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by. Please consider subscribing if you haven't. I create new videos every single week focusing on simplifying your life, minimalism, decorating, really just anything that has to do with the home. So stay tuned. I'll have more videos coming in the future. And have a blessed week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!